Hi, this is Krista Moore, and welcome to the Krista Moore Show. I'm excited about our guest today for two reasons. One, it's the final show of 2019, so we wanted to make sure that we left this year on the right foot to get into 2020. And also because we've got two terrific ladies that are co-authors of a new book, and it's called Competitive Selling, the Guidebook to Proactive Calling in a Reactive World. I always like to talk to industry experts and thought leaders that can share their success stories and growth ideas. And in this case, today, we're going to focus on sales and how you can get on the fast track to sales success. So I would love to welcome our guests today. They are co-authors, Marisa Pensa and also Stacia Skinner. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome. Thank you so
Hello.
much.
Sure. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I know we're a little festive here. It kind of looks like we're thinking about
We
that.
are quite festive. Love to dress festive around the holidays. So yes, Merry Christmas to you, Krista.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I would love for the audience to get to know each of you individually a little bit more. Give us a little background, maybe a quick bio, and we would just love to get to know you.
Stacia, if you could go ahead and first, I'm dealing with the light. It feels like something in the background. So if you could go ahead,
Sure.
Then I will.
As Krista said, my name is Stacia Skinner, and I'm president of Creative Training Solutions. I've been in the sales training business for probably over, let's just say, a really long time instead of how many years. I started when I was 2. But I also have been in sales all my life. My whole genre has always been in sales. And so I take a passion to sales. And this is kind of what we did when we collaborated with Competitive Selling. The book that we collaborated with, it kind of helped with that.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Marisa?
So Marisa Pensa, I've been in business almost 16 years, not as long as Stacia, but so Stacia was actually a mentor of mine when I first got started. So when I started out as a franchisee, I was known for calling Stacia and just saying, I have a quick question. I have a quick question, even still today, quick question. I'm always honored when she calls me now for a quick question. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're asking me a question. But been in business for 16 years. I had the honor of working with a lot of independent dealers. So we have a lot of independent dealers on the call. Do a lot in the independent dealer community in and outside of the independent dealer office of product industry. So both. So anyway, really excited to be on the call today.
Yeah, thanks. And the one thing that I really liked about the book is this kind of notion that it's not consultative selling, but it's more competitive selling. And I like that because I think there's different kind of genres around sales and sales training, and competitive selling had its moment. But now you're bringing to light a new approach, or really a new system. And I'd like for our audience to really understand the difference between what you might mean from consultative selling to competitive selling. Stacia, can you answer that? Or Marisa? You guys choose.
I'll actually take consultative selling, and then Stacia weigh in on competitive. So consultative, everybody does consultative selling. It's kind of the me too in sales. So if you're doing consultative selling, of course you're asking questions. Of course you're following up on leads. Of course you're establishing some form of a next step of, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to send me this. So I mean, we're all doing consultative. What makes you any different? And so that's where competitive selling comes in.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things with competitive selling, the word competitive can kind of have a negative connotation to it. And it's not. I'm not trying to shove a sale down your throat. That's not what competitive selling is about. Basically, if you think about it, sales is a game, and the one with the best plan wins. So competitive sellers are those who know what to do when the pressure is on. And they know what to do when the pressure is on when they're in front of a customer or a potential customer. We got to be on our high game. You know, we got to be 100%. A competitive seller is at 100%.
I love that analogy and also the differences there, and I'm glad that you're able to share that with us. When I think of consultative selling, it's almost like we all need to be that way anyhow, right? Ask questions, listen, understand, cover their needs, give them back what you might recommend. And I mean, that just should be a part of the sales process regardless. But I'd like adding that competitive component to it because at the end of the day, it is. That's what it's all about. So you've got to have that sales approach. Not that you have to come across that way, but internally, I almost feel like you need to know that, hey, I am a competitive seller internally.
Right. Well, and I think, Krista, one of the things that I like to do is give this analogy is that with competitive sellers, they have a deeper dive understanding about a very simple subject of sales. It's kind of like if you asked an 8-year-old how to hit a golf ball, they could tell you in 2 seconds because they don't have a real clear understanding. But if I asked Tiger Woods how to hit that golf ball, he could speak, 3 days on it. The reason is he has a deeper understanding of that subject, which is what a competitive seller is they have a deeper understanding of the subject of sales.
Yeah, the subject of sales. It's not that you know your product better than somebody else or that you're a better presenter than someone else. It is that you understand your skill. You understand, your trade, so to speak. And you're going to
exactly
your competition.
Right.
Good stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that you all talk about in the book too is something called a roadmap. And I think most of us understand a roadmap is kind of a guide, and your book uses that as a subtitle too. But what do you really truly mean by the roadmap when you're referring to the roadmap for the sales call?
So I'll go ahead and speak to that. So whenever we say a roadmap, and a lot of times you've heard script many, many times, but a lot of people just clam up when they hear the word script, like you're going to make me word for word for word. We're not trying to put you in that kind of box. So a roadmap is more of, okay, what are the key points? When John or Sue answers the phone, what are the key things? I've got to get their attention. I need to identify myself. I need to give a powerful reason for the call, what's in it for them to talk with me. And then I need to directly ask for an appointment. Not when's good for you, I'll call you after the first of the year, or Tuesday, Thursday better. But we're really honing in on asking for a direct date and time and just being assertive to it, not pushy, but asking for a direct date and time. So that's your roadmap, is having the key points you want to accomplish to be able to get that meeting, or be able to get a phone appointment or to get a face-to-face appointment. That's your roadmap.
So from a roadmap's perspective, is that something that a company establishes that, okay, this is our sales approach, our sales process, here's the 4 steps to how to get the appointment? What are your thoughts on that, Stacia?
It kind of is, but I don't want to scare people that they don't get the flexibility of being creative. I always get people pushing back, well, you sound like you're going off a script. Well, the reason is just because you didn't practice it. And so it is something that you have to give, what is it that you sell? What makes you better than the competition? What is the benefit of somebody talking to you? Remember, especially the roadmap when you're making that very first call is critical because of the fact that you're doing interruptive marketing. And that person wasn't waiting for your phone call. So why do you think they have all the answers that you're looking for? They don't.
Yeah.
Respect their time and give that date and time and move on.
That sounds great. Now, one of the things that I just wanted to let you know is I think your camera froze for a moment. So you might to click on your camera again because it went off and we need to see your beautiful face.
I know something happened to it said connection is lost.
Oh, no. But we can still hear you. So if we're unable to bring your video back up, then we can still hear you, thankfully.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to take a deep dive into is what's referred to as I like to call it the three secrets, the three secrets to having that competitive edge. And when I teach about Race to Amazing and getting on the fast track, that's what I like. Okay, give me three things so that I can get from point A to point B quickly and effectively. And that's why these three secrets to competitive selling, I think, is really intriguing for me. And I think it will be for our audience as well. So why don't you go ahead and start out, if you would, on the number one. I think it had to do something with what you're saying or your words. Was that the first secret?
Yes. Yes. What it is basically is we talk about words in the sense of the advantage goes to the one who knows what to say under pressure. Just like I stated before, for competitive selling,
yes.
We've all had that in that time when we've gone into a meeting and all of a sudden they go, oh, you know what? I should have said this, or I should have done that. You know, it was a great learning experience, but who probably got that sale? The one who knew what to do.
Yeah, and I wonder, is that based on experience or training, or what? How do you feel the sales rep can gain that knowledge of, well, what do I say and how do I say it, you know, in a sales call?
Well, one of the things, and Stacia, I'll hone in on here, I'm not seeing you on the screen, so I think we're going to have to try harder to not talk to each other. We'll figure that out. But one of the things, so Krista, in how can a salesperson know that, you know, one of the things is the opening of prospecting calls is the only part of the sales process we can totally predict. You know, I can't predict what questions they're going to throw me always. I can't predict what's going to happen. They're going to give me a commit. They're going to order. They're going to get the sale. But I can predict what comes out of my mouth when I first get a decision maker over the phone. So one thing is make sure that you're working on and you have a game plan and a roadmap for what's totally predictable. And also objections that we get that fly at us 90 miles an hour, those are pretty predictable. I mean, we just take, for example, and I'm just going to take because I know there's an independent dealer community audience on here. Let's just say I take, what's your pricing compared to Staples? Well, it's a predictable question. So anything that's predictable, I should have an answer to. Hello, you look fabulous. Thanks for coming back. Anything that's a predictable question, we need to have a response to. So, for example, I might say something like, you know what, pricing is the easy part. We are going to make sure it makes financial sense to work with us. It's really the service that our customers fall in love with. And then I would probably ask a question like, in addition to great pricing, what else is really important to you? And notice that I said in addition to pricing, not other than pricing. I said in addition to fair pricing. We recognize it's important. What else is important? But the key with words is, like Stacia was saying, sometimes we can get something and we wing it. And there's so many things that are predictable. You don't have to wing. The advantage goes to the person that plans out what to say for those predictable objections, responses, and things that you know you're going to have to say. So my challenge to you would, if you're sitting around together at a conference table, maybe you're doing this over a lunch and learn or an afternoon, you know, flush out on a whiteboard or a flip chart after this meeting, hey, what are 5 predictable objections that we get? And do we know our responses for those? Because that helps you get the competitive advantage.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've learned when I was in sales, and you know, we do a lot of sales training as well, is when you hear that objection, ask another question sometimes too, just to get clarity instead of responding with the solution. Maybe you weren't really clear on the reason why they have that objection in the first place. So one, I guess I'm just adding to that when you're sitting around your room and you're talking about these common objections, make sure that you're really addressing kind of the need behind the need of that objection. Like, well, your prices are too high. Instead of solving that, you can say, why do you feel that way? So that's a
Right.
question. So that they'll say, well, because so-and-so told me, or, well, I was looking at these pens online. So you just more fully understand why they have that objection in the first place. But so you don't come
Yeah.
across giving the standard line, when you hear the objection, oh, well, and they've heard it from every salesperson.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. It's really getting an You're right, Krista. It's really getting an understanding of why. And the two most important questions that I think salespeople don't ask because they're afraid of the answer is how and why. And if you ask, well, give me an understanding. How are you, finding that the pricing is, or why that way? It's amazing what you can find out behind that. And that's a way to get the dialogue going because you want to hear their story.
Yeah. So we're talking about that
Yeah.
first secret, which is words. And I think it all
Right.
really falls in line here. It's what you say, how you say it, when you say it, when you're asking a question, when you're solving the problem. I always like, tell me more, describe to me, just to get that
Mm-hmm.
conversation of words going.
Right. Absolutely. It's and a lot of times it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
I would
It can
agree.
make the biggest difference.
Yeah. Cool. Why don't you guys give me an example of that? The difference between how you say it and what you say.
So,
Well,
like
I'll just
that,
weigh in. Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead. You're good.
Well, I mean, the example that you gave us, Krista, was pricing. I think your pricing is a little high, or maybe I say, Marisa, I really appreciate the opportunity, but gosh, we're kind of okay with the price of where we are right now.
Mhm. I'd also weigh in on the difference in phone sales versus face to face, because there's things that you can say. If I have the luxury of being across the table with you with a notepad and we're both having a cup of coffee together and that kind of thing, I can come across with a certain why and how kind of question. Whereas over the phone, you've got to paint a picture in the way that you ask the question, or even just the words. I love the words just out of curiosity, or just curious, or could you help me understand? It buffers the delivery of a question over the phone, and we need that buffering over the phone, because otherwise, if you have a directness to your personality, then it might come across a bit abrasive if you say something over the phone the same exact way you would say it in person. So just some slight differences.
I could see how true that is. And I'm thinking about calls that I get that are just random calls, and the tone and the speed and the professionalism, will make it sound cheesy or not cheesy. And
Right.
I think that
Mhm.
if that person was sitting across from me, I have a lot of other senses in play, and I'm not just hearing that voice or that tone. So I think that that's an
And
important point. Mhm.
And Krista, you bring up a good point, and this is something to always think about when you're on the phone versus when you're face to face. When you're on the phone, 90% of the conversation is tone, and 10% is only the words you say. When you're face to face, you have the advantage of body language. Body language counts for 65% of all conversations. Without that, I mean, you think about it, even like today, it's hard if people aren't seeing us, if they're doing it all over the phone. Our tone makes the biggest difference versus what we're saying. So that's what I mean by how you say it versus what you say.
Let's go on to secret number 2.
Secret number 2, which is time. Time. There's 2 types of time. There's tactical and strategic. Competitive sellers actually know how to shorten their sales cycle and know how not to spend more time on people who aren't going to buy from them. So what I mean by this is that there's 2 ways of looking at time, tactical and strategic. So tactically, competitive sellers know how to live off peak. you know what? They know how to cluster versus multitasking. I'm going to tell you right now, multitasking is a waste of time because you start something and then you do something else. When you cluster, you get more done. Also, strategically, they have a process to know who is really looking at buying from them and who is not. And one of the critical components that they have of that is what we call an NST. An NST determines if a person is looking at doing business with you or not. And Marisa, do you want to go through what an NST is?
Sure. So there's a big difference between, consultative selling would say always have a next step. Who's doing what? Who's sending what, et cetera. So let me give you an example of having a next step. So I'm going to play salesperson, and Stacia, why don't you play my prospect? Okay. So my attempt is to position sales training for you and give me some kind of response.
Okay. You know what, Marisa, could you just kind of throw a proposal for me? It is at the end of the year, and if I could just look at something and if you could just throw that to me, that would be great.
Absolutely. I'll definitely do that. I'd like to review it with you, though. But here's what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and email you something so you have it over the holidays. And then how about I give you a call that first week of January, the week of January 6th, and we'll follow up then. Does that work for you?
Yeah, you know what? I should be back in the office.
Okay, great. We'll talk the week of January 6th sometime. Thank you. Okay. We've established some kind of a next step, but to Stacia's point is it's really figuring out quickly who's playing ball with you and who's not. So let's do second round. Stacia, be my prospect again, give me a response, and I'm going to go for a next set time, not just a next step.
Which is basically our NST. And there's a huge difference. It sounds really little, but it's probably going to be the biggest bang for your buck. And I promise you, if you do this, you will bring in more sales in less time. So I will be the customer. Marisa, listen, could you just shoot me a proposal? Let me look at it during the holidays.
Absolutely. I'll definitely do that. I'm going to put some ideas and a recommendation based on our conversation on paper. I'll send that to you so you have it over the holidays. But could we do this? It's really important to me to get your feedback and get your input if what I've put together is perfect for your team. I'm looking at the first week of January, actually Tuesday, January 7th. How about we say 2 o'clock? That way you will have had a chance to look at it and we can go through it together. Does the 7th at 2 p.m. work for you?
Actually, it does.
Okay, I was waiting for your response. So as you can see, the difference there, the first is the week of the 6th versus narrowing in on the 7th at 2 p.m. That's a next set time. And the only other thing I'd say is that helps you take out hopium. We say salespeople are addicted to this drug called hopium. I hope it's going to happen. I hope she'll get back to me. But we got to take the hopium and the wish list out of our pipeline and get real. Who's truly committed to you?
Yeah, I'm going to take it one step further if you don't mind. So first off, I could feel the difference between example 1 and example 2 as a customer and as the salesperson. So it really just kind of changing up the words and really getting the commitment around a specific time felt good. It felt natural. What if she says, no, that's not going to work for me. Just give me a call at the end of January.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you guys are experts in this, so I'm not worried about that.
Well, I think what happens there is that your radar should go up saying, maybe I didn't do something right. I always blame it on myself that I missed something. So the first thing I would say is, Krista, it sounds like either I missed something or there was something that I didn't explain correct. Is there a reason why we can't get together on the 7th?
Yeah, that's
because
perfect.
I'm asking for that commitment. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that example, because I was hearing the same thing, that if someone isn't going to commit on the other end for a simple appointment after they're done reading it, then you've missed the mark, right?
Right.
There's a big gap in understanding, and it's almost like a blow off.
If someone can't agree to speak with me again, what makes me think they're going to buy from me?
Mm-hmm.
So I got to be brutally honest. If they won't agree to a time on their calendar with me, Stacia and I, we're salespeople first, we're trainers second. So just living by example, if I can't get my name on their calendar, I got to take out the hopium, get real, because it could just be helping me be honest with what's really there.
And we're talking about time, right? We're talking about that secret of time, and a sales rep kind of controlling and managing their time effectively. And why would you keep calling and following up if you know that you got to cut that one loose because it's a waste of time? So it's
and the thing,
absolutely.
you just said it. You just said it right there. It's a waste of time in the sense of that. Why am I going to spend time on somebody who won't give me the only thing that I can have is time with you? That's it. That's all I'm asking for. And if you won't give me the time to sell, the likelihood of doing a business with us becomes less and less.
Yeah.
So manage your own time.
And that feels kind of scary, from a sales rep's perspective, if you're thinking about how often are you not getting that commitment from the prospect of your time, right? Gosh, you'd really have to have a pretty big pipeline in order to not, make that just drive you crazy, or a better way, to sell. And I think it goes back to time, right? And words.
Right.
I kind of refer to it as quantity and quality. So it's the quality of your words and the quantity of effort. And that's the combination of those two.
Absolutely.
Something's off. What about the third area, which is referred to as metrics?
So on metrics, the way I want to think about this is if anybody's ever used a fitness app on your phone or tracking of food, and so I'll just take one that's popular right now, like MyFitnessPal. And so every time I put food in my mouth, I'm supposed to put it in there, so it keeps me accountable. Stacia and I we had a work day yesterday, and we were at Starbucks, and Stacia forced me against my will to have a little Reese's thing at Starbucks, and I had to put it in. So like the thing is, when you track it, you're more accountable for what you have. The same is true with sales. And so what I'd ask you to think about is, have you sat down this year, or I encourage you to do this, where what you track improves? So do you know how many appointments have I set in 2019? How many calls did it take to get those appointments? What's the average order value? Knowing your numbers, and it fuels you to be able to know, hey, here's what it's going to take me. And I'll just share this real quick. So Stacia and I did this yesterday. We actually went through what are those numbers. And like even for me, I was able to figure out 335 dials, 63 appointments, 17 sales outside of my number one account, what the average order value is. Stacia and I both figured out exactly how much we make every single dial based on total sales and average order value. But there's so much power in knowing exactly what you make per dial, and it actually fuels you to go, okay, you can make another dial. And knowing your numbers and your metrics of it is a major difference in competitive selling. Stacia, anything you'd add to that? Or sorry, Krista.
No, I was just going to say it's a different approach. I mean, I understand metrics and measurement and monitoring and accountability and all of that. But what I heard was the concept of going backwards and looking at, look at 2019. You sold 1.5 million or whatever the dollar amount is. So how did you get there? What were the numbers that it took in order to get there? Because if things need to change or be different, then you need to change those numbers, change the metrics. And that should help then create maybe more tangible goals and more realistic go forward kind of plan and roadmap. I love that idea. So I would certainly
Well, and the other
recommendation.
The other thing too, Krista, is this, is if you know your numbers, wouldn't you love to know how many dials you actually have to do per week in order to get the numbers that you really want to hit? If you really look at the 10% or the 15% that a lot of us have to do to increase our numbers, it comes down to maybe 2 to 3 more dials a week that somebody has to do. That's it. So it's not a huge number. If we put the big number together, yes, it sounds huge, but if you break it down, and this is a challenge for all of your listeners, look at what you did for 2019. If you're looking to increase your business by 10%, what is it going to take on a daily basis? That daily basis is easy to hit versus that monthly basis. Break it down. Break it down.
And that brings up this next subject that I know we've talked about before, which we refer to as like feeling or talking as though you're desperate. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest thing that I think is that we have to be careful as salespeople is we're right now at the end of the year, and all of us are trying to, close out the end of the year. And a lot of times what can happen is if things aren't going as well as we want, or we're pushing before next Monday, we become very focused on our sale, which can also make us sound very desperate. And when you get into desperate mode, what happens is that we don't think clearly and we start discounting very, very quickly. And then our margins start to hit. When things are good, we're very unfocused, and we tend to be a little bit loosey-goosey on that way. But right now and coming up, depending on your pipeline, if you don't have a full pipeline, start getting it built for 2020 right now, because this is the time when decision makers are in. Don't start lagging off, really explode it. And that's the difference. Become more unfocused than focused, because when you're focused, we do sound desperate. Marisa?
Did you mean to say become more focused than unfocused?
No,
Was the other way around?
Because it's kind of like being proactive versus reactive.
Okay.
We become very reactive. The thing is that our look at it, I want you to become unfocused where you're not desperate because you got a knife in your pipeline.
Yeah.
Versus being focused, but I gotta get everything now because that's what's got to happen.
What I heard you say too is if you're like laser focused on something, that's when maybe that tone might change, or how you're feeling is going to change, because that's that desperation feeling, right?
Yeah.
And that could come across in a conversation. It's not that you're going to be unfocused about what it is that you do. It's more you're comfortable because you have the pipeline, and you don't have to kind of be out of sorts. Mm-hmm.
You can say no.
Yeah, exactly. That's the difference, right? When you can say no. I love that. That's
exactly.
And what a wonderful feeling to be able to say, no, we're not a good fit, or no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, or this isn't going to work for us. Wouldn't that be great from a salesperson to be able to turn down the deal, right? Turn down the offer.
Well, Stacia, we were just talking about that, and that's early in your book about how you had the ability early in your business to be able to say no to something that wasn't a fit for you. I mean, sometimes even when you do need the business, but to be able to be at a place where you can say, because it's just not a fit, and not everything is a fit. So
have to be related to money, right? The desperation doesn't mean to be because I need to make my house payment this month. It's more about what you want to do with your life and your time, and who you want to work with, and there's so many other factors to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is there anything else you just want to mention? We're about out of time, and I want to share the screen that will show your contact information. So if anybody would like to reach out to either one of you, they know the best way to do that. Marisa, do you want to share with the group in terms of what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, the contact information is on the screen, and you can just reach out that way. But the only other thing I'd share is I'm just going to share the one call at the end of the day challenge. So challenge yourself going into next year to just make one more call at the end of every day before you shut down your computer, you'd be amazed of how much just that one extra call a day can do for you and just what it does over the course of a year. So make the one call challenge and reach out to us. Let us know how it goes. Stacia, anything for you?
You know, my contact information is there, and I'm going to bring a challenge to everyone. If anyone has a question or they want just a little bit more detail, because we went through so much in a very short period of time, you can either email Marisa or myself, and the first 5 questions or responses that we get, you know what, we'll send you a complimentary book. How's that?
That sounds great. So actually you're challenging them to use all 3 of the secrets that you just covered, which is words,
yes,
time, and metrics. So I love it. Anyhow, ladies,
absolutely.
I want to thank you for being my guest on the show. We've had a great audience as I was kind of flipping through and seeing how many were joining us. And also this will be available for later listening for anybody that wants to share it with other people within their organization or pass it along to a friend. So just know that you can go to the Krista Moore Show website and go to past shows page, and the recording you'll be able to access the audio and or the actual video today. So take care, ladies. Thanks again. You have a wonderful Christmas and happy holidays. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Absolutely.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you so much,
Happy holidays to
Krista.
you too.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Have a prosperous year.
Thank you.